Hello, I'm Jerry Braet, and welcome to my railroads. I have a few remnants of my former HO layout that filled the whole basement at one time. I worked on this for 27 years. Um, Most of the basement is now filled by the new railroad, which is O scale. It's almost twice as big as the HO scale models were, and you can see them a lot better. You can put a lot more detail in them, and so that's what I currently work in. These in this room is what you first see when you come in, and what I model in the O scale is the Rio Grande Southern Railroad. It was a railroad in southwest Colorado that ran from Durango on the south to Ridgeway on the north. The Denver and Rio Grande had already built its railroads from Denver to Montrose and Ouray on the north of the San Juan Mountains, and from Alamosa to Durango up to Silverton on the south. Otto Mears, the little Russian immigrant, then built the three little railroads north out of Silverton. He was perplexed that he could not connect Ironton and Ouray, a distance of 6 to 10 miles, with a railroad because a route could not be found that a railroad could traverse. He decided in 1888 to build the Rio Grande Southern from Ridgeway to Durango, a distance of 162 miles, to cover a distance of 55 miles as a crow flies. This spectacular railroad would require 140 bridges. Okay, I wanted to tell you the difference between standard gauge and narrow gauge models. Standard gauge is the railroads that we're used to. Those are the railroads around the Midwest. The standard gauge had a track gauge of 4 foot 8.5 inches between the rails. In the mountains, they built narrow gauge railroads, and they weren't all in the mountains. Some were in level ground, but in the mountains you could build a narrow gauge railroad for a lot less money because you could go up steeper grades and around sharper curves, and it was just more economical. The equipment was smaller, so it didn't cost as much. The narrow gauge that I model is 3 foot between the rails. I'll push the cars up to show you the difference in their size. I want to show you a little bit about the difference in scales. There are a lot of different scales. I've got 3 examples here. They're all 3 are stock cars. They're narrow gauge stock cars, and the first one is this big one. It's F scale. It's 1/20.3 of actual size. That's kind of a weird scale, but that's what this is. It's very similar to G scale, which is the Garden Railroad scale. It uses the same track, but this is slightly bigger than it. The next scale is O scale, and it's 1/48 of actual size. And the third one is HO scale. That's the little one. It's 1/87 of actual size. Now, it's not exactly half of the O scale, which the HO originally meant half O, but they're slightly different sizes, and that's the way they came up with them. This is a Montezuma Lumber Company train, which is leaving McPhee, Colorado, with empty log cars. It's going to take them to Dolores, where they'll be exchanged for loaded log cars. show you how I make the evergreen trees. This is an original. I learned this from a video from another fella. But you take a piece of floral wire, bend it in half, like so. Crimp it with a pair of pliers. Then you lay it down on a tool bench. And this is rope that I prepared. You take just regular old sisal rope and boil it in water. And I think I probably even put some bleach in the water for these trees because I think they were kind of dark. But anyway, take the sisal rope, boil it in water, hang it up to dry, and then you untwist it, and you end up with fibers that look like this. This is a fiber of one of the strands of rope. There's actually something like 4 or 5 of these strands in a piece of rope. So you get a lot of fibers out of a little bit of rope. Anyway, I take those and this piece of wire that I have, you cut pieces of it and put it in between the wire, and they're increasingly longer pieces. And when you get that all down on the tool bench, you take a hot glue gun and run a strip of hot glue along both sides of the tree. That keeps the fibers from falling out in the next stages of assembly. Then we take a pair of scissors and we trim it so it looks something like an evergreen. I just go by eye, try to get both sides somewhat the same, but as you can see they're not. And then you also trim it into somewhat of a bell-shaped curve. The trees are wider at the bottom as they grow older, so the branches can get some sun. So you end up with something like that. Then we take it and we twist it. I take the upper end of the tree, clamp it in the vise. Then I take my electric drill, clamp the lower end, in the chuck of the drill, and then you just turn the drill. Turn the drill on. Presto, you have a tree. Then I go outside to the garage. This is a can of epoxy enamel. This is the tree we just made. And I spray this tree so it's just saturated with this paint. After I do that, then I take this ground foam and just put it all over the tree. As you can see, it isn't sticking because I didn't actually paint it. But this is what it ends up looking like. Pretty good tree, huh? Here we have a westbound wave freight. It originated in Ridgeway this morning, and it's on its way to Rico. It picks up and sets out cars along the way, and then also has a bunch of cars on the end that are going beyond Rico. The consist has road engine number 55 on the head end and helper engine number 461 on the rear end. The train has enough cars that it has to have a helper to get it up the hill. All the railroad is operated by using these cards. There's a separate card for each car. The yellow card is what we call the car card, and this is a card for boxcar number 3382 from the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad, and that's the very first car on the train. And there's a card just like that for every car on this train. In the pocket, the white card is a waybill that tells where that car is going. And that particular car is going to Rico, and it's going to go to engine house track number 1. It came from Placerville, which is back down the line a little way, from Texaco, and it has oil products inside. So each one of these cars has that information on it, and it tells the operators where they're going, where they have to be set out, and along the way we'll find cars that need to be picked up. For instance, there's a car in Butterfly, and here's the card for it, and it says to pick it up and take it to the Durango smelter. This train should really pick that car up, but in the interest of speed, we're going to pass that up and just run the train up the hill. This is Bridge 45A in Ophir. It was one of the longest bridges on the railroad. And since I meant it to be kind of a centerpiece, I wanted to do it as accurately as I could. So this is all scratch built. It's the same length as the real bridge, the same heights, has the same grade, and on this end has a curve. It's just the same as the real railroad, and the grade even decreases a little bit in the curve, just like the real railroad. I cut all of the wood on my radial arm saw out in the garage. The main beams on the vents are 12 by 12 in real life, or a 1/4 inch square on the model. These main beams, there are 2 of them here. You can't see it because there's sheet metal that covers the top of them. The sheet metal was to keep the beams from catching on fire in case some of the sparks from the locomotive dropped on them. Anyway, there are 2 beams side by side. Each beam is 9 inches thick by 30 inches high by 42 feet long. That's a big piece of wood. Okay, this is how I build the trestles. Each trestle, before I begin, I make a jig. This is all styrene. These are all little bits of styrene to hold all the little wood pieces in place. And it's reinforced on the back side so it don't warp. This particular one is for that big bridge that we looked at, 46A in Ophir. And I apparently built it in April of '96 because that's the date that's on the top of this jig. What I do is I start off with the wood. I cut pieces to the approximate size and stain them. And now this piece isn't cut to the right length, but you start with the top piece, put it in the jig, and then the legs have already been cut to the proper angle on the top. Put that in, use white glue to glue it together. The next piece, the next piece, and the last piece. You let the glue set up, Then I take it out to the garage, use my radial arm saw, and make a cut right across here. That'll cut all the pieces to the same length and also cut them to the right angle. Then we take another piece and put in here, and then more pieces, vertical pieces, and just keep working our way down until we get the whole bent made. And when we get done, this is what one of the bents look like. Now it's had cross braces added to it. You can add the cross braces on the top as you go, and then put them on the back side when you take it out of the jig. This is a piece of timber that I told you about. That's 9 inches wide, 30 inches high, and 42 feet long. I don't know if you can see, but if you get in really close, the guardrails are notched for each one of the ties. And normally I don't do this when I'm building a bridge. I just glue the guardrails on top. But I have a friend in St. Paul, Minnesota, who also models the Rio Grande Southern, and he notched his guardrails. So I decided I better do the same thing. So each one of those are notched for each tie, which is fine until you get to the curve. And when you get to the curve, the notches on the inner piece have to be closer together than the notches on the outer piece. Okay, here's how I laid the track. I prepared a little board with a few ties and one rail spiked down. We're going to put the second rail down. These are track gauges. They hold the rail the proper distance apart. Whoops. There we go. And then we take long nose pliers and these little spikes. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's a little spike just like a real railroad spike, has an offset head. Put that in the long nose pliers. Push it into the tie.